It's no secret that caterpillars are some of the cutest creatures to have ever existed. Their fuzzy, chubby bodies, mixed with their insatiable desire to eat everything in sight, make them extremely adorable. But what if we told you there was more to these little worm-like insects than meets the eye? Well, it turns out it's both. These caterpillars copy every aspect of their serpent counterparts, from their appearance to how they move, and sometimes even the way they smell. We'll get into that later. For now, let's talk about their coloring. Turns out these seemingly harmless critters have a pretty shady side as well. It's not uncommon for certain species of caterpillars to mimic snakes in order to trick their predators. And to be honest, it makes total sense why they do this, considering how many animals see them as nothing more than a tasty meal. So let us take a look at how exactly they pull off this very convincing trick, and which particular types of caterpillars are known for doing this. First things first, we need to ask ourselves, why on earth would a caterpillar want to mimic a snake? Well, the answer is simple: survival. You see, there are plenty of animals out there who consider caterpillars to be a delicacy. Birds, frogs, lizards, spiders, humans, almost anyone will eat them if given the chance. So naturally, the caterpillars had to come up with a plan to escape becoming someone's dinner. And since they don't have any natural predators of their own, they began copying the most feared creature they knew, the snake. And surprisingly, it worked. After all, no animal is going to want to eat something that could potentially bite or sting them, even if it does look like a delicious caterpillar. But have you ever wondered just how well these caterpillars can actually mimic snakes? Is it only their color, or do they also copy their behavior? As you know, snakes come in all sorts of different colors, but when it comes to caterpillars who mimic them, there seem to be two main ones: green and orange. Green caterpillars often have black stripes running down their bodies, making them look like venomous snakes such as coral snakes. Meanwhile, the orange ones tend to mimic non-venomous snakes like the scarlet king snake. Either way, these caterpillars really know how to pick a color scheme. Not only are these shades usually found on actual snakes, but they also happen to be the exact colors that scare off the majority of their predators. However, there are some caterpillars who decide to go all out. Take the Ornithuthis ornitozoids, for example. These caterpillars literally look like little green snakes with red heads and black markings. Just looking like a snake isn't enough to fool potential predators. The caterpillar has to behave like one too. Luckily, these guys have that part covered as well. In fact, many of them get extremely aggressive when approached and will strike without hesitation. Now imagine you're a bird who's never been bitten by a snake before. Wouldn't it be wise for you to assume all caterpillars that act like snakes are venomous? Turns out it is. Despite looking like a regular caterpillar most of the time, it can transform into what's known as a bicolored form when it feels threatened. As you can probably guess from the name, this form has a black and orange striped body, which is very similar to the venomous caterpillar. Who knows? Maybe they're the real snakes all along. Interestingly enough, the slug caterpillar doesn't just look like a venomous caterpillar. It also behaves like one. It moves slowly and unpredictably, keeps its body coiled up, and even hisses when confronted. Honestly, it might as well be a tiny snake. Many animals instinctively react negatively when confronted by a caterpillar that mimics a snake, even if the caterpillar isn't actually dangerous. This large green caterpillar has a big red bump at the end of its body that looks exactly like the head of a venomous snake. Plus, it has black, white, and orange stripes running down its body, giving it a very intimidating vibe. We should also mention that the hickory horned devil is covered in sharp spines, making it look even more fierce. To top it all off, it lets out a hissing sound whenever it's approached, making it the absolute worst caterpillar to mess around with. That's because their instincts tell them to avoid anything that looks and acts like a snake. And really, what's the harm in that? Caterpillars who mimic snakes tend to move in the same slow, unpredictable manner as their reptilian counterparts. For instance, the urticating caterpillars are covered in stinging cells that deliver a painful sting, as we mentioned earlier. Some caterpillars who mimic snakes also copy their smell. This is usually done through a combination of chemicals caterpillar produces itself and chemicals it acquires from the plant it eats. For example, there's a caterpillar known as the vomit factory that feeds on poisonous milkweed plants. As a result, it accumulates toxins that make it taste terrible. When a predator eats one of these caterpillars, they immediately regret their decision and spend the next few hours frantically searching for a bathroom. Needless to say, it's not a very appetizing experience, and one that no animal wants to repeat. So even if a vomit factory doesn't look like a snake, it sure smells like one. And that's all thanks to the chemicals produced by the milkweed plant. While they may not kill you, they certainly won't make you feel great. Similarly, there are caterpillars that secrete a toxic substance from their skin. And believe it or not, there are even a few caterpillars that eat poisonous plants, meaning their bodies become poisonous over time. Obviously, it's better to err on the side of caution and avoid eating any caterpillars that mimic snakes. Even if the caterpillar isn't poisonous, the predator doesn't know that and will still end up getting scared off. So basically, any animal who eats a caterpillar that looks like a snake is either completely drunk, has a death wish, or hasn't watched this video yet. This means they don't follow a straight path and they rarely move in a hurry. If a bird happens to swoop down and try to grab them, the caterpillar will just wiggle its body around and feign a bite. And guess what? Works. They have the same oval pupils, and even tiny forked tongues that stick out when they're threatened. Similarly, there's the Amphipterygidea, a group of caterpillars that can grow to be several inches long. Depending on the species, they range in color from light brown to dark green. And they even have white dots along their bodies that resemble scales. And let's not forget about the Euclea, aka the golden-crowned Laline moth. Not only does this caterpillar have a crown-like marking on its head, but it also has yellow and black rings around its body that are identical to those of an eastern brown snake. Basically, you can find all sorts of caterpillars that look like snakes, but the two main ones to keep an eye out for are the green and the orange ones. If you spot either of these, just stay far away because they probably aren't as cute as they look. So we know what they look like, but what about how they act? When it comes to animals, especially birds, safety is always the top priority. So when they see a snake, they tend to stay as far away as possible. If they absolutely must interact with it, the elves usually opt for a non-lethal approach, such as poking or pecking at it a few times before deciding to fly away. And since caterpillars, who mimic snakes, often include these behaviors, the predators don't think twice before running away. However, there is one more thing the caterpillars do to complete their disguise, and that is perhaps the most important part of their plan. If you've ever been outside and seen a snake, you probably know by now that most of them don't like to be touched. There are, however, some caterpillars that take this mimicry to the next level by actually being venomous. Now, let's get back to the subject at hand. We should also mention that some caterpillars, who mimic snakes, do so by looking like dangerous parts of snakes. Take the slug caterpillar, for example. Another caterpillar that mimics a dangerous part of a snake is the hickory-horned devil. Overall, it's safe to say that these caterpillars definitely deserve our respect.